Hello again, Internet. We are back. We are live. We are coming at you directly from the DNVR Avalanche account now on Twitter. Also, YouTube, Facebook. You know where we're at most of the time. Those same places. And today's episode is brought to you by Strava Craft Coffee, the rich CBD-infused coffee, which now can be purchased in K-Cups for your Keurig. Of course, they also have whole bean or ground options as well, and you can get 20% off when you use code DNVR20 at checkout. When you purchase, be sure to tag them and let them know supporting us, supporting our partners. So be sure to get on that. If you want to try before you buy, a number of locations around Denver do have Strava Craft Coffee, so you can swing by and get your fill there. Again, just remember to use that DNVR20 code when you purchase. Welcome in to the DNVR Avalanche Podcast, presented by Davidson's Beer, Wine, and Spirits, my go-to shop for any and all beer, specifically Breckenridge Brewery beer. But either way, we are back. I'm Nathan Rudolph. Joining me, as always, is AJ Haefele, and we have another guest on the show today to hopefully enlighten us on the past week of madness out east in New York. From the Buffalo SB Nation, Die by the Blade, as well as editor-in-chief of Expected Buffalo and host of the Beyond the Blade podcast, we have Chad DeDominicis. Is that correct? I know I'm pretty weak with names, so I tried my best there. But Chad, thank you for coming on the show. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys?
As good as you can be. I imagine better than a lot of people are doing that are Sabres fans at the moment. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean it's calmer. It's a week later, but still, it's. I guess the embers are still burning a little bit.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm sure we'll dive deep into that. Before we get into all of that, first of all, how did you become a writer for the Sabres? We can get into your story a little bit.
Oh man, so I've probably been writing about the team for 7 years now. It kind of started as a hobby, and I've always been a hockey fan for a while, and then I just started doing it for fun, and then I jumped onto a few sites to kind of kick it up a little bit, and then I got with the fourth period, and that's kind of when it became more of a, I guess maybe this could go somewhere, and then to SB Nation. I've been there for about 3 years, and then now recently, as of 2 months ago, starting my own site, which is still covering the Sabres, but it's more of a, analytics look at the team, as you will, looking at the fancy stats and the numbers to kind of separate ourselves a little bit from the normal Sabres coverage that is out there. So, yeah, it kind of started as a hobby, and then it's kind of grown from there. It's been, I guess, a long passion of mine that has kind of took me to where I am now.
AJ has recruited another analytics mind to come on the podcast for us. Color me shocked on that one.
Well, I can't be the only one.
Okay. Good to hear it. Always appreciate a story on how people got into what they do now when it comes to hockey. So that's awesome. So, first of all, the question I would like to ask is Buffalo came in 25th in the league, just missing out on this playoff format. Some episode that has not yet been released, there are some cases to be made that Buffalo maybe should have had a chance to get into this thing. What are your thoughts on the playoff format in general and Buffalo missing out?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the best, I guess, they could do. I don't have a problem with it, and the Sabres missing out, it kind of is what it is. It's win one more game. It's have a goalie that doesn't turn out months later. You find out he actually was struggling with a vision problem through most of the season. It's don't have one of the worst penalty kills like in franchise history. And they even had a chance. They were in it for a while, and they went out west on a 4-game trip after the trade deadline when the general manager at the time, Jason Botto, kind of brought in players like Wayne Simmons and Dominic Cahoon at the deadline. So you could say even, quote-unquote, bought some players to try to help them at that time make what was almost a hopeless push. But now we find out if you don't go 0 for 4 in that trip, that they would probably be in right now. So it's a lot of things that add up that I get it that you only missed a game. And the ultimate irony to it all is the team they would have played the day this season was suspended would have been the Montreal Canadiens. So if they would have won that game, they could have beat Montreal and jumped ahead of them. But it is what it is. I don't really feel bad for them. As cool as it would be to see Jack Eichel in a playoff game, win more games before that or do something different that, it doesn't come down to just one game.
This marks 9 years of missing the playoffs for Buffalo, so I guess you've never covered them in the playoffs.
No. Nope, I didn't. I'm trying to think. The last time was Philadelphia series. Yeah, so I didn't start writing until after that.
What's do you have any idea if the front office bloodbath that we witnessed last week would have still taken place had they made the postseason?
There's things. What happened last week? I don't think would have happened. No, but there were things that happened maybe a month or so ago where they let go their head PR guy, the director of ticket sales, and then someone else I forgot. Like 3 or 4 high-end executives in the organization that were let go. The plan was to let those people go as sort of a cost-saving measure, even before coronavirus kind of hit here. So that was already in the works. But no, I think the purge you saw last week definitely would not have happened if they somehow snuck into the playoffs.
That's a pretty dramatic shift based on what could have been one game.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, look at it. I mean, like, they were not even close to a regular playoff spot, right? So, I mean, that's
right.
This 24-game thing is kind of rare. I wouldn't base that into that. Like, that's to making the real playoffs that happen every single year, 16 teams, they weren't even close. Again.
I understand that from the firing the GM and Botterill type of situation, but how much of looking towards the future is a motivating factor here with them firing essentially their entire scouting core?
Yeah, that's part of it. And, they're not going to play for 6 months here. Nothing's going to happen for 3 or 4 months even before the draft comes along. Firing your amateur scouting staff is an interesting choice, especially when you consider who the GM is, right? They brought in Kevin Adams. Not a lot of hockey ops experience, if really any at all, to be honest. So taking away a lot of the group that would have been here doing all that work, that pre-draft prep, makes it tougher on him because now he's got to get caught up when I'm sure he's done absolutely no scouting to this point whatsoever. To get caught up on that with a skeleton staff of like 4 amateur scouts. His director of amateur scouting and assistant director of amateur scouting both went in that purge, so they're gone. So he's got a handful of scouts, one of which has been here like through the last 4 regimes, but I have no idea how he continues to survive. But one of the scouts somehow continuously survives. He's still here. In like 3 other ones, they have 1 pro scout, a couple, I think like 1 more player development person left. The whole AHL staff is gone, which is interesting because they're like the only part of the organization that was actually successful, but they're gone now too. So, yeah, I mean, this guy has to bring in a whole staff, has to get caught up, has 6 or 7 key restricted free agent negotiations they have this summer, or off season, I guess it'd be the fall probably when that happens. So I don't know, he's in tough for it, and for a guy who doesn't have a lot of experience, it's not going to be easy for him.
With the draft lottery this Friday, you would, if Buffalo gets lucky and ends up in that top 3, not having a hockey guy or a hockey staff on hand when your franchise has a top 3 pick. I mean, this feels like a lot of self-defeating is taking place.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair enough, you're in the top 3, it makes it a little bit easier, right? I mean, it's especially if you get to 1 or 2. I mean, there's only
I mean, if you get 1, you're in the money.
Yeah, right, right. But I think it's more complicated if they stay or if they drop a spot, right? Because then there's so many guys to kind of go through, and for a team that needs a forward as bad as they do, there's probably 8 or 9 forwards, if not up to 10, that can go in that top 10 there, or can be discussed in that top 10. Mm-hmm. And then it comes to discussion at that point. So I think that'd be the more difficult one. If they get in that top 3, I think it makes it easier. But if they're at that 7, 8, 9 spot, I think he can get really dicey if you're not all the way up to task on what's going on.
If you guys stay where you are in the draft lottery. One of the things that we want to do when talking to guys who cover teams that are out of it now and are kind of looking forward and are saying, okay, well, our teams aren't back on the ice until January. We're kind of wanting to bring you guys on and say, okay, how would you fix it? So I guess let's start with that draft pick. Would you strongly consider a goalie in the top 10?
No, not at all.
Not at all? Not even a little bit?
Not even a little bit. None. For a few reasons. One, because goalies, you never know.
Sure.
Two, they have Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, who's a promising prospect, was a second-round pick in 2017. And then last year they drafted Eric Portillo in the third round, who had a pretty good USHL season. And then he goes to the University of Michigan next season. So, you already have two decent goaltending prospects in your system. And then when you throw on top of it the roll of the dice of a goaltender and the unbelievably obvious need of a forward, I give it zero consideration whatsoever.
Zero. Even if you dropped a spot or two and you ended up at like 7 or 8.
None. I wouldn't even consider goalie in the first round.
All right.
Interesting.
Wow, the whole first round. My kind of drafter here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Goalies, you just the goal you pick in the first round can be just as good as one you get in the fifth round. Like I'd rather take a bigger need. You can say the same thing about a forward defenseman, right? But I think you're more locked. I guess your odds are better picking a forward or a defenseman than a goaltender that is almost a complete crapshoot.
All right. I like that thinking. We will get more into how you can save the Sabres in the second period here. But first, I got to tell you guys about Breckenridge Brewery, the official beer of DNVR, whether it be the Avalanche Amber, the Mile High City Copper Lager, the Vanilla Porter Jr., or any other number of their beers. You can find them down at the Farmhouse in Littleton, where you can pick up and even get $5 off a meal when you use code DNVR at checkout. You can call at 303-803-1380 from noon to 8 p.m. to schedule, or you can always go down to your local Davidson's grocery store. Even gas stations regularly have Breckenridge Brew around here, so give them a try today. And I also have 2 DraftKings picks of the week for you here today. First of all, they have an odds boost with the Mile High City Super Odds Boost right now. They're giving plus 5,280 the Mile High for the Avs to win the Cup and the Nuggets to make the conference finals. Now, to be clear, separately, the Avs to win the Cup are plus 800, and the Nuggets to make the conference finals are about plus 300. Together, you get plus 5,280 on that bet if you want to go full Colorado fan. And
quite a parlay there.
I'm saying, you get real good cash back if everything comes together on that one. The other one, more specifically, Avs centric. You can bet on the Champions Hockey League, which will be coming back here relatively soon. Our boy Eustace Annunen just signed his recent contract. Will be playing in that league with Karpat, who are the 4th highest team to win it at plus 900. So
4th?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you know what? A couple of pretty good Avs-related hockey bets out there, even if hockey isn't quite back on the table yet. Personally, I like the Annunen one a lot, just because I like betting on things where I'm not super sure about a lot of the things going on. So if I lose, I can be like, well, dang. But either way, a lot of money out there, potentially on the table for anyone looking to get some skin in the game with DraftKings Sportsbook. And if you want even more money for betting, DraftKings will be giving you up to $1,000 in cash back based on your deposit and playing with their app. So go ahead and download their top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code DNVR when you sign up to get that $1,000 bonus. Must be 21 or older, Colorado only. Bonus comprises of first deposit bonus and first bet match, each up to $500. Deposit bonus must require 25x playthrough. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700. All right. second period of the DNVR Avalanche Podcast, presented by Davidson's. I'm Rudo. He's AJ. Chad is joining us here, covering the Buffalo Sabres. So, 9 years without the playoffs. Draft is a good place to start, but you're looking at that roster. You already mentioned the 6 or 7 contract signings that they're going to have to take care of this offseason. How do they make this team better? Are they looking more longer term? Is it sign the guys they need to and add a couple pieces? Who are they targeting?
Yeah, and the obvious need, it's been this way since they traded O'Reilly away in that deal that basically was kind of almost the kill shot for Jason Botto a couple of years ago because he never recovered from that trade. They needed a second line center behind Jack Eichel, so they tried Casey Middlestat. That didn't work. They tried to go with Marcus Johansson this year for some reason, even though he's played center in years. That didn't work. And then now you have Dylan Cousins coming up. He's only 19 years old, though. He had a great junior year. He had a great World Junior Championship, but you don't want to rely on that guy to be your second line center. So that's the need, right? They got to find that center behind Eichel, and they have an overabundance of defensemen, so they could use Rasmus Ristolainen, or they can use Brandon Montour as 2 right shot defensemen to kind of see what they can do and start from there. And then from that point, you can throw in draft picks if you want to get throw in prospects, but they really can't go through any type of rebuild situation here. They really got to try to get this thing going because Eichel's not going to sit around forever here. He already said he's getting a little tired of this losing, and there's no way you're going to be able to sell this guy in another 2 or 3 years before they're realistically anything. So Adams has to get this thing going in the right direction pretty quick here.
Okay, so they're trying to rebuild on the quicker side. Makes sense, obviously, when it comes to someone like Eichel, who, let's be honest, a prominent player in the league, one of the top ones in the league, certainly when he's healthy, but has nothing to show for it so far in Buffalo. So are there any free agent targets specifically that Buffalo should be thinking about this offseason, or is it just kind of a free-for-all and take what you can get to try and turn it around?
Yeah, free agency, I don't know if there helps them to be there. I think if they're going to get that help they need, they're going to have to go through a trade. There's a few guys in free agency that I like, looking at my numbers background. Jesper Fast from the Rangers is some guy I'm interested in a lot. I think he can play up and down your lineup as a middle six kind of guy, so he's interesting to me. If they want to move one of those right side defense.
Well, we may have lost Chad for a minute here, but I'm sure we can jump right back into the conversation when his internet hiccup comes on back. Either way, what we did get out of him was Jesper Fast. AJ, what do you think of Jesper?
He's a solid, sort of middle six guy that would be able to give them quality depth, right?
Sure.
It's really, it's not like the high end guy that it's a difference maker, but they've got some guys like that. You have your Reinhart, and you have an Eichel, and you have a Skinner. You have Olofsson.
Yep.
If they're able to do like what he was saying, you're able to get a second line center. It really opens up a lot of what they're able to do, and getting a guy like Fast would, who's a
help
solid player,
out, right?
Think of him as kind of a Donskoy or a Comfort type, where that guy could move up or down the lineup and be good in whatever role is being asked of him. That I think there's value in a guy like that, and certainly that's not a guy that's going to cost a lot of money.
No, right. We've been talking about the flat cap a lot lately.
Yeah,
and certainly that type of player is one that you can get reliable minutes out of for relatively cost-efficient dollars. So,
yeah, and maybe even consider a guy like Nemesnikov as well, because that's another guy that could fit into that lineup, and he can do a lot of different things.
We've seen him probably, but yeah,
and in the NHL we've seen him play all 3 positions. So even if you were to just add both of those guys, you're okay. Well, now you have 2/3 of a quality third line as well. to go along with the top 6 that you like. And if you are going to dip into your pool of right shot defensemen in order to find that second line center somewhere,
yep,
it's not hard to see where it all kind of comes together, and where you don't necessarily want to go in like that, but because you have to be careful with spending the money.
Sure.
You have to, with the flat cap, you don't want to load up on
middling dudes that
right,
are
like those $3 or $4 million type guys where you're like, ugh.
Now we all of a sudden have 20 million tied up in our third line or something.
Right. Well, and that's, they've already got Marcus Johansson at $4.5 million.
Yeah.
And Kyle Pozo is still hanging around. I don't really know what the expectation is for his role moving forward, given that he's completely fallen off the map as an impact player. But hanging around, I guess.
He exists. He's getting paid. You might as well play him somewhere.
Yeah. So that, the focus on the forwards, I think, is interesting, and that they're willing to dip. The thought is to dip into the defense and to start there. They do have an abnormal number of right-handed defenders. With Ristolainen, Miller, Montour, and Yoki Hario, they've got 4 of them right there, where most NHL teams have like 1 or 2.
Yep.
So it's a good place for them to start. It's just, what's the value going to actually be? If it's Ristolainen, a high-end power play guy who signed for a couple more years, which I think is going to end up being more valuable, even if he's overpaid a little bit. A team knowing what a guy's worth for the next couple of years while the cap is in flux is going to be really, really important. So being able to use a piece like a Ristolainen, I think that'd be smart. You don't want to dip into getting rid of too much further, right? Like
if you're not burning it down and starting again, which you need to maintain a lot of your core to do that. Yeah.
It can't be like Ristolainen and a first,
right?
It's got to be Ristolainen, maybe a prospect that team likes. They don't really have any excess picks. They don't have their third round picks this year or next. They're missing 5th rounders in 21 and 2022. So they're lacking,
tied up. Yeah,
they're lacking any kind of excess picks for them to play with, where any decision that they make to get rid of those was going to be a problem. Yeah,
straight up. They do feel a little bit stuck in between at the moment. They can't destroy it as long as Eichel's around, as they need to try to win now for him. But they also, do they have the assets, I guess, to get to where they need to be is the question. With the right-handed D, maybe. I mean, that's a good step. It's a little bit weird from the Avs side of things, as they've always had a right-handed D, kind of. So similar situations, I suppose, maybe to something like the Tyson Barrie move. They're looking for a 2C. I mean, the Tyson Barrie trade is a good framework, probably, as they ended up getting Kadri for 2 years out of that deal. The Avs did. So something similar. Find a team desperate for a right-handed defenseman and go to work.
Yeah, a team that's just got an extra center to burn. I mean, obviously that's not something very many teams are in a position to do.
Sure. You have to find the right thing, but
it might be a situation where Vegas is the one that you go call into Vegas.
Sure.
Because they've got between Stastny and Carlson, they kind of have 2 second line centers, but they also have the highly touted young kid in Cody Glass that you want to continue to give opportunities to. And so I wonder, obviously Stastny doesn't do anything for Buffalo right now.
Yeah. Would not be the one I would target, certainly. You could start with a guy like Carlson, especially because they could definitely use another defenseman
that could move pucks. We've talked about how Tyson Barrie would be a great fit for them.
Yeah. But certainly the way they had to kind of hedge their bets on their defense over the last couple of years, it does feel a little bit lacking for them on that defensive side.
Yeah. Their big thing here is money. I mean, Vegas continues to have a money problem, and that would be where if they could move Stastny for a guy like Risto, that might make sense for them. But again, for Buffalo, it doesn't make sense because then you're getting a 34-year-old second line center.
Right.
That might be great to make the postseason next year. But when you're trying to make the postseason from here on out, and make that a consistent thing, Stastny just doesn't do anything for them. And that's where, where do you go? Where do you go and find? Where do you pluck that second line center? Who do you find that is just
they're willing
to just has centers?
Yeah, right.
Like Toronto was obviously in a unique position because they had Matthews and the other guy, and so they didn't need Kadri was great value on a contract for a top 2C, but as a 3C he was overpaid.
Yep, straight up.
So it's a tough spot to be in where you just start looking around the league and you're like, okay, well, there's just not very many teams that are sitting on more centers than they really need. And I also wonder, hey, they have a top pick. What if they get the second or the third pick?
Right.
They could easily get
there. Yeah.
Right. The German kid. They could easily pick a center and then drop that guy into the NHL right away.
Yep.
And just go from there. It's like, okay, well, there's your center. Now you can trade Ristolainen for whatever you want.
To help round out whatever your weakness is as you feel it, for sure. So, I mean, honestly, that's a good question. We may see things start to take a lot more shape for teams after this Friday, or at very least after the final phase of the draft lottery, depending on how things shake out with the mystery teams potentially winning top 3 picks. But
yeah, I'm hoping that I don't want that to happen.
I mean, I don't understand why they needed to do it. Couldn't they have just waited until after the play-in round to do the lottery?
Totally. Seriously, they would have. You wait. They're talking about starting the games up on July 30th, and it's like you wait an extra month and you do it during the first round, like you normally do.
Yep.
What's the issue here? You only have one of these things now, instead of doing this weird 2 lotto system.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Just seems weird and unnecessary, but hey, that's the NHL for you, I suppose.
Oh, when it happens and they just pull the card out, is it just going to be a question mark?
Yeah, that's true.
Oh.
Team number mystery.
Yeah. Team we don't know yet. And then it just begs the question of why is this even happening then?
Yep.
This draft lottery is supposed to answer that question, not create a second round of them.
Yeah, as we seem to have unfortunately lost Chad here, this is a topic I want to dive into a little bit more. But we do need to take our second period break here, and it's time to let you guys know. Hopefully Chad can get his internet manscaped here and get back on the pod, and we can continue talking about Buffalo. But Father's Day was over the weekend. Maybe you're looking to order a late little gift and you forgot to do something. Manscaped is a great option there, as their perfect package comes with the Lawnmower 3.0. You can pick up a bunch of different things, whether it be the amazing carrying case, the spray-on toner, the anti-chafe deodorant. AJ even talked about if you want to go for something a little bit on the cheaper side, you can go buy some mints. You can pick up a shave mat. They have all sorts of awesome stuff for you that range all over the board, even cologne. Anything to take care of you looking good, feeling good when it comes to manscaping and your entire body, face, chest, back, below the belt, you name it. They got you covered. So head on over to manscaped.com, and when you purchase, be sure to use code DNVR20 to get 20% off plus free shipping. And you'll be all set. You will have everything you need. Your balls will thank you on that one. We also have our official gaming partner here at DNVR, WGT Golf, which you can download by going to DNVRgolf.com, and you can join the DNVR Clubhouse by searching for DNVR2. So we had to set up a second one because we maxed out our first one, and the second one is starting to get pretty full as well at this point.
Yeah, we are at about 115 members in DNVR2, and I believe this weekend we are setting up our first DNVR1 versus DNVR2 club match.
There you go. So the intra-squad play here a little bit.
Yeah, we're gonna see which of the DNVRs comes out on top.
There you go. So fight for your DNVR2 pride if you're joining DNVR2 there. And WGT Golf is a game loved by more than 20 million people around the world. It's mobile. You can play on the couch or anywhere you go on your phone, including real courses like Pebble Beach, Bandon Dunes, Wolf Creek, and many others. So you can go head-to-head with anyone in the DNVR community. The clubhouse makes it super easy to find someone to play with. You can do 1 hole, 3 holes, skins, stroke play, you name it. You can do it on the golf course. Again, DNVRgolf.com to download. Third period of the DNVR Avalanche podcasts. Not sure if Chad will be back or not, but as we wait and we talk about this weird drafting format, because this is just kind of where the show has gone. AJ, are you concerned, assuming 1, 2, or even 3 of the picks end up being the mystery team?
Am I concerned?
Do you think that it encourages tanking in the play-in round?
No, because I think the players will not care at all.
Okay.
Like, what are you gonna tell Patrick Kane? Like, hey,
well,
bud?
what? So, from the player side, I actually agree with you. But because this happens so early, could a team theoretically? Because there's 8 teams playing in, right? There's 12 teams total on each side, and 4 in the play-in. So there are going to be 8 teams that get eliminated. So you have 37.5%. Is that right? 3 of 8. If all 3 end up being mystery teams of being a top 3 pick. And if you're a GM, are you not looking at that and saying, oh, well, maybe I just don't bring Patrick Kane and we bring a bunch of bums on my 28 skater list?
Sure. I mean, I guess at your own peril, because then you're telling your fan base that you don't care at all about winning. You're gonna not take a healthy Patrick Kane or a healthy, pick a team with a star player.
Yeah, sure.
And you're not gonna compete in, especially for a team like that that's been gifted a postseason opportunity that they weren't anywhere close to earning. It's a hard sell, man. The Stanley Cup is worshipped more than draft picks are in hockey.
It is. And rightfully so, certainly. But when you are, I guess it depends on how you look at it. Are you looking at it in Chicago as you've been gifted an entry into the playoffs? Or are you looking at it as we had no chance to win this playoffs from the outset here, and we're missing out on an opportunity to be a lottery team?
Yeah, I mean, I guess if there's three of them,
yeah.
Like,
I don't see anyone tanking if one of the teams is the mystery team and you have like a 10% chance, certainly.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we're talking about in the
bizarro world here.
Whatever world we're living in, where all 3 selections get up in there.
Bottom 8, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think, because even if you do, right, you're still talking about like a 37% chance.
Sure.
This isn't like a 50 or a 60% chance to be a top 3 pick, where you're like, oh, like these are good odds. It's still 37%. And I just don't think that those are good enough odds for you to mess with that.
not disagreeing with you. I think
it's the Stanley Cup, man. You try and win the cup.
Right. You go for it. If you miss out on a draft pick, boo-hoo, you know.
Yeah.
If you win a play-in round, I mean, crazier things can happen, but that proves that you are at least somewhere in the realm of contending.
Yeah.
So the opportunity, I definitely don't think is worth the cost, but there are certain teams that I would be a bit more wary of than others. We'll put it that way.
Which ones are you wary of? Is it like Chicago?
Chicago and
Montreal?
Montreal, yeah.
Okay. So the last two that they let in?
That they threw in because they're big markets and shouldn't be in the playoffs, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't I personally I'm not too concerned about it. I just, especially Montreal, like, could you imagine in that market if they didn't take that seriously?
Yeah,
you've been given a chance in the playoffs that they were not going to otherwise earn. And like, they might have a star player issue like that where they don't take Max Domi, right? Because they the diabetes and the health issue concerns, like,
yeah,
maybe they don't, and
there
then
are real reasons not to, yeah,
right, and then maybe they're having that conversation where they're like,
we can't really compete without this guy or whatever.
Yeah, where they're like, well, maybe there's another guy that that we're going to talk into having a health issue. so like maybe like something semi shady like that could go down for very specifically Montreal. But even then, like, you're still talking about the odds are just not on your side. It would take something. It you have to win 2 draft lotteries essentially. And as we've seen with the ads, winning 1 even when you have the highest odds, not very good.
True.
So I think they've done a decent enough job of mitigating the possibility of the tanking that it's not a true concern.
Yeah, I don't think it will happen, but I think that they just made it unnecessarily an option, right? This could have all been avoided by waiting a month, like we talked about. So
yeah, we're gonna go through the lottery, and even if there's one of these mystery cards that gets pulled, it's gonna feel like this was for no reason.
Pretty much.
Like, it's because you're like, okay. Now we're waiting, another month, and I don't think it creates any additional drama when teams are getting eliminated, because what's the story, like, oh man, if they don't win tonight, they have a 12.5% chance to win the 3rd pick. Like, it's
right.
Okay.
Again, that drama is only really there if it's all 3 that
it's so manufactured that it just doesn't feel interesting. It just doesn't feel interesting. I'm disappointed we lost Chad and we didn't get to continue talking about Buffalo, because it was a very weird week for them.
It was. We may have to try and have him back on or something else, I'm sure, if we get the opportunity. But
yeah, because 2/3 of the show is now going to be us just talking about whatever.
The draft lottery, but
yeah, Bob's rankings dropped today.
Yeah, they sure did. I think they were mostly fair. I didn't have any big complaints on it, to be honest. So
yeah, the one thing that happened is one of the things that I think we talked about was the defensemen rising up that board.
Yeah, that always happens.
And like, when we started looking into draft stuff, we were both looking at a guy like Caden Goulet, Braden Schneider as, hey, maybe these will be late 20, mid-20s guys available, because they're kind of blah defensemen. Maybe better defenders than they are offensive type guys right now. And the league is sort of trending towards great skaters and guys who push the play, and neither one of them are really that.
Yeah.
And instead, we are
Straight up the charts they go. Yeah.
Right. Like Bob's rankings drop, and they're both.
Goulet was what, 14, I think.
Yeah, Goulet's 14 and Schneider 17.
Yeah,
and so it's like, well, probably not going to happen then.
My boy William Wallander at 27, though.
Right. And like Wallander was the guy that we had talked about. Like, oh, when we first started talking about him, he was in the 30s.
Yep.
And now it's like, okay, well, if the Avs make the conference finals or later,
yep,
that's the conversation we're having, 27 and beyond. So, you know, that's where it's and it's a huge gap too, because Justin Barron at 25, and we've talked already about him and maybe some of the unique problems that he has with the blood clotting issue and how him playing at altitude could be problematic. It really just sort of depends on what the medicals look like, and it may not be any problem at all. And if it's not, then I think that him coming in at 25 was actually one of the surprises for me, because he had really fallen down a lot of boards with both a lackluster on ice season and medical questions that they can't answer right now. And maybe these boards are mostly being done off of the information that they have, and they're not able to get 100% complete medical information yet. And so I'm curious what that ends up looking like. Like Barron at 25 surprised me just because he had, like, this is a guy that we've talked about with top 15 talent. And as a right shot defenseman who's 6'2" and is a very good skater, the appeal is very obvious. But so many question marks, including, to be honest, he just didn't play very well this year. He was just kind of okay. You kept expecting him to dominate and take over, and it never really happened. He was just okay, and it left you wanting. And then, you know, the injury issues, he had a shortened season of a shortened season.
Right.
And so it just created a whole mixture of things that I thought was going to punish him a little bit more. If he ends up going late in that first round, it's entirely about the talent. The same thing.
Of projecting there. Yeah.
It's the same thing that a team's doing with Hendrix Lapierre.
Yep. Exactly.
Who ended up
like 15 or something, right?
He's 15 on this list despite playing in just 19 games and having question marks about concussions, which is like the worst question mark that you could possibly have in the game today.
Yep.
And then it's you know, it's not even just concussions. It's, were they actually concussions? Was there something else going on?
Yep. So, I mean, that's the thing about the league right now when it comes to the draft. Bob, always a very reliable resource when it comes to these draft lists and things like that. But the reality is the scouts are having to project significantly. So you're going to get some wider variance. You're going to get some crazy things like that happening in a draft year like this, because let's be honest, the scouts have one of the hardest jobs in a regular year, with less to consume, with less knowledge of what's going on, as you mentioned with Barron, possibly not being able to get medical official results and things like that. It's near impossible to have the full picture on a lot of these kids.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, it's the most, I guess we'll say, the least viewed class, the least prepared for class that we will probably see in a very long time.
Yep.
Because even in like lockout years, junior hockey goes on as regular.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing that I think could be interesting about this is that if the draft is late enough, they might start up. Like, we could be talking about where
you're getting more content 2 weeks before the draft. Kids are playing CHL games.
Right. Like, teams are finalizing their lists. Like, I know Colorado's list more or less was finalized a week ago. Like, and I say more or less because things are always a little fluid in some areas. The Avs last year, when they were at the draft, they hadn't finalized the list 100%, and they were still, what do we want to do it for? If these 5 things happen, what's our choices? You know, what are our choices and what's the plan? Blah, 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 blah. And so, like, that's, you know, teams are done for the most part. We could be talking about a team could be using that, like, World Junior Summer Showcase, which is almost entirely useless every year.
Could be a major scouting event.
Right.
Now. Yeah.
And because do you remember in 2017, after the Avs drafted Timmins?
Yep.
He went to that, and was like -5 in 2 games and was
absolutely
horrible.
Brutal. It was awful.
He was so terrible in that tournament. If he hadn't been drafted yet, and that was going to play a role in his stock, you'd have to wonder.
I don't think he gets drafted at the top of the second round if that was an important thing. Yeah.
Like, because there's no postseason, and that could end up playing a role in somebody's stock.
Yep.
On the other side, like
U18s to go to. They haven't had all that.
Right. Like a dude could blow up and he could score 12 points in 3 games.
Yep.
And you're like, holy crap, who is this kid? And, maybe he goes from mid-second round to mid-first round because you thought you had your list finalized and then you watched him and you watch him in that setting right before the draft where you're like, oh my gosh. So we could be in for a totally bizarre draft experience because of that.
We see a lot of off the board picks and randomness going on. Wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
But either way, unfortunately, Chad couldn't get back on, but I think it's time for us to get out of here for today. So, Chad, if you're out there, thank you for coming on the show. Hopefully we can get you back on to properly talk Sabres sometime relatively soon. But to everyone out there listening or watching live, thank you as always. If you want to help support us, we also cover the Colorado Raptors here at DNVR. Reporter Colton Strickler is taking you inside the locker room with the DNVR Raptors podcast. And, of course, you can find all of his written content right on thednvr.com. Be sure to
tune there today, too.
With the Raptors? I haven't seen it.
They Infinity Park, where the Raptors train and play, was named the National Training Center for the U.S. national team.
Excellent. So there you go. Some very high-quality rugby coming here to Colorado very soon.
the best the United States has to offer.
Which, let's be honest, is maybe not the best in the world.
It depends. It depends on if they're doing sevens or not, because the sevens team is super good and the other team is less good. So we'll see.
Either way, if you're in the States, it's not going to get any better than that for you. So be sure to tune in. They also do live watch-alongs every weekend of Raptors games in the past. If you want to get a feel for things, Colton has 101 pods to break down the basics of the game for you as well if you're just getting into it. So if you want to help support us, be sure to go follow DNVR Raptors on Twitter and give rugby a shot. We are out of here for the day. We will be back tomorrow or Wednesday, one of the two, with another guest covering the Anaheim Ducks, and that one's pre-recorded, so I guarantee
we know that one's already good.
That full story. Until then, we'll talk to you later.